Hey guys, this is our stopgap digital process. If you have any questions, please give me a call. To begin, the client sends us a brief. Okay. We have an internal briefing. At this internal briefing, client service should be there. The project manager should be there. Creative should be there. Strategy should be there. Technology should be there. And media should be there. The process I'm going to share with you is one for a really big project, so be it a big website or a brand new IVA. Obviously with an IVA, media won't necessarily be there, but client service, project management, creative. Strategy and technology, similar. So for example, strategy, think of Sarah Tang. Technology, think of Scott Ellison. So the idea is here, we have an internal brief led by client service. They share with the team what the brief is for, and everyone has their input. A key deliverable from the internal brief is obviously a timeline and budget guidelines. Budget guidelines. Obviously, these two don't happen immediately, but as quick as possible, with chatting to all these stakeholders, a timeline and a budget is set. The project manager is responsible for timeline and budget, so the project manager should develop the timeline and develop the budget guidelines and make sure that the client service person is aligned at the end. So before we move on, client has to sign off this internal brief. So the sign off is obviously the internal brief, the timeline, and the budget guidelines. Once client is signed off, we then move into what is called digital strategy. Now, digital strategy can be big or it can be small. For example, if we're doing a big website, there should be some web strategy. If we're doing an IVA, there should be a usability strategy. So I'm going to call this let's call it a usability strategy. For IVAs, or a web strategy. The person that is responsible for delivering the digital strategy is Sarah Tang. Now this web strategy, which I'll share with you later, this web strategy can be a one-page strategy where we list who the core user is, what are their attitudes and beliefs, how are they behaving, and as a result of how they are behaving, what functionalities need to be part of either the website or the IVA. This can be a 20-page slide deck, or it can be a one-page strategy. The key here is this again, once the digital strategy is signed off, once the digital strategy is developed, client signs off. Okay. What's really important about the digital strategy is not only are we talking about the user and the platform and what technology is going to be used. But super important is what kind of analytics are important. You'll see down the line, when we go into programming, a programmer needs to know how we're going to be measuring the success of the development, and those measures or analytics need to be programmed here. A big mistake that people make is once the thing's programmed, be it an IVA or a website or an app, people think, okay, how are we going to analyze the success of this deployment? And to retrofit analytics into a build is really tough and expensive. So this is where we decide on the analytics. So once clients have signed off the digital strategy, we develop, and you've all heard it, what is called a sitemap. Now, a sitemap simply is a picture of every single page the user will see, every single page the administrator will see. You all seen sitemaps. It's pretty straightforward. The sitemap is developed by the digital strategist. In this case, Sarah, digital strategist. In this case, Sarah, for the moment. As we go along, we'll build our resources, but the digital strategist is responsible for this. Once the sitemap is developed, it goes to client for sign-off. The reason why client needs to sign it off is this is where the client sees, yes, it's going to cost. We do need 20 pages for this development. It also gives the client an opportunity to see the logic flow. Part of the sitemap is what we call a user flow. And it's a simple diagram that shows how a user gets from one page to the next. And why that's really useful for the client to see the user flow is the client is able then to go, you know what, that page is actually redundant because the subject matter is very similar to another page. So let's get rid of it. And that's how you start driving efficiencies out of the build up front. Once clients have signed off the sitemap and user flow, we develop a document which is called functional specifications. All that's functional specifications is a document that says, right, we've got 20 pages. So for each page, what is the objective of the page or objectives? And because of those objectives, what functions do we need on that page as a result of those objectives? So for example, we're building a website and we have the home page, and we know the objective of the home page, there's 5 objectives. One of the objectives is we want people to sign in. So the functional, so you write that objective down, but then the functional requirement of that is have a sign in box on the page or have a login box on the page. Another one is we want users to see that lots of people are using the site. The functional spec would be insert a traffic ticker, a rolling number at the bottom of the screen that shows how many people have been to the site. Not recommended, but that's an example. Once the functional specifications document has been developed, It's a really, 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 I'm going to say it again, really important document, because this thing lists every single function and goal that we want the user to take or that the user could take. Once client signs this off, once client signs this off, they cannot go back. If they do, not a problem, but they're going to incur costs. So this is a list of everything that needs to be included in the site from a functional perspective. Okay, so that's functional specifications. Client signs us off. Again, what's really useful about this is it gives the opportunity for client to see what is on each of these pages from a content point of view. Once the client has signed off the functional specs, we go into wireframes. We develop the wireframe. A wireframe is another word for blueprint. All it is a piece of paper with boxes on it that shows where the different functions need to go, where the images need to go, and where copy needs to go. These are critical because they lay the foundation for the creative. I'm not going to, technically, each page should have one goal that we want the user to take, and that should be highlighted, it should be above the fold, it should be in bold, it should be eye-catching, it should be the focus of the page. More on that later. So once we've done all the wireframes, and if they're 20 pages, which includes maybe an admin view, once the wireframes are done, we need client sign-off. Okay. Why that is important is client sees the skeleton of what the development looks like, what the IVA looks like, what the website looks like. There's no creative here, there's no copy here, it's just lorem ipsum for the copy and image placeholders for the creative. Depending on how big the build is, two things can happen. One, we go straight and we brief creative. Okay. However, if it's a really big build and we know that there's sizable programming that's going to be involved, there is an opportunity for, really cheaply, to do what is called a prototype. And a prototype is simply an animation of the wireframes. So, for example, we could take all 20 pages of the sitemap, and we can link the different buttons in the wireframes to other pages on the sitemap. And so what will happen is client is able to click through the skeleton of the IVA or the website to get a sense for the user flow. Why that is really useful is they get to feel and experience what the user experience is going to be, obviously without copy and aesthetics. So that can be done. Once that's done and signed off, obviously that gets briefed into creative. So the normal creative process happens. There's two stages. There's two things going parallel now. The first thing is we start doing, and it's up to Susie or Steph, but we do three concepts. Okay, And while we're doing that, we start developing copy deck. Copy for the wireframes. So three concepts. We obviously get it down to one concept, and normally we would do three concepts for the home page or the landing page and an other page. So we get it down to one concept. Client, then obviously there's a sign off of client sign off of the concept, and then that concept gets rolled out into design. Rolled into design. Okay. Somewhere along the line, the copy gets inserted into the rollout, and then we get layout. Layout should then be signed off by client sign off. And if all goes according to plan, only then once the layout has been signed off, do we go to PAB. Now obviously this site, PAB, they go through that. Hopefully we've done our work. There's not too much changes that PAB has, but if PAB has changes, it comes back to the copy deck gets filled out, gets readjusted, briefed into Studio, and Studio make the changes, do the layout, and go to PAB. Once PAB signs it off, so then we have PAB sign off plus client sign off. Of the creative, so the aesthetics, the copy, and obviously all the functional specifications. Once that is done, then we go into what is called, two things happen here. We go into, hopefully, I'm still on the screen. Front end development. Front-end development, and front-end development is the part of the build, the website, the IVA, that the user will see. So a programmer has to go now and program, or basically cut up the layout, host the assets on a server, and then write the code, HTML or whatever the ask is, so that the user can be able to interface with the build. While the front end is being developed, there's also something called the back end. And the back end is programming that allows what the user sees to be integrated into the client's business, or simply onto the server. The back end powers the front end. So if you think about, the front end is what the user sees, the back end is what makes the front end work. Once these two are complete, we go into what's called QA, or QC, quality assurance or quality control. And here a dedicated quality control person or quality assurance person, a technical person, tries to break the front and the back end. So what they will do, first of all, they'll obviously click on all the buttons, to check that they all work. They'll try save documents. They'll try different browsers to see if it loads properly. They try break it. Every time they find a problem, they'll raise a ticket. The ticket goes into a queue, and then either the front end or the back end developer have to fix the bug. And once they fixed it, they say that the ticket has been fixed, and then the QA person double checks that it has been fixed. The QA person is also responsible for managing those tickets and feeding back to the team what the problems are. Once QA is complete, we invite the client. So we invite the client to test. So the client has a look. They see if they can break it. If something does if there is a bug, we raise a ticket and we fix it. Once client is happy that everything is that the build is quality assured, they sign it off. Once they sign it off, we go live. Some technical notes. The first thing is we develop the programming on a call it a programming server. It is a server internally that no one else sees, that only the programmers have access to. Once the QA is happy that the quality's up to par, we then move the thing that we're building onto what is called a production server. And a production server is the server that we use prior to go live. And the production server allows our client to see what this thing looks like in real time and is able to interact it. We do final changes on the production server, and once everything is working 100%, we then move the build from the production server onto the live server, and that's what the client sees. That's what the client sees. In the ideal world, something magical happens here. In the ideal world, once it's gone live, we start running the analytics. And the analytics, is that on? Yeah, just. The analytics that we've defined up here and we've programmed in here tells us what's working on the website and what isn't. So it tells us what's working, what isn't. For example, if we find that people are landing on the home page, but they're not clicking through, maybe the color of the button is incorrect. For example, best practices state that a green and a red button, a green or a red button, have higher click-through rates than any other color button. So, for example, we change the button. So we change the button, which we call some kind of intervention. Okay. In the live environment, or actually in the production environment, and once it's working, we make it go live. And we keep testing this, and hey, now that we've changed the button from blue to red, there's high click-throughs. Great, what's next? And so you would have heard this term. This is what's called, let me fit this in. This is what's called the optimization. I'm going to write on top of it, optimization process. And it's the iterative process of testing, analyzing, to make the website better, make the IVA better. Remember on IVAs, if we find that a doctor is spending too much time on a certain page because they're having difficulty reading it, we know that we should go back and maybe change the copy to an infographic or do something to improve the usability of the build. So that's called the optimization process. So the functional specification. So so that's the process. The people involved, let's take a step back. So we know that everyone's involved in the internal brief, the digital strategist, as well as, the digital strategist develops a digital strategy. They develop the sitemap and user flow. In the perfect world, there is someone, and the digital strategist also does the functional requirements. Digital strategist. They do the functional requirements. In the perfect world, what you have is someone who does UX, which is the user experience, a user experience expert. This is the person that develops the wireframes. Currently, although I am a UX expert, we need this role. We do have resources in the form of freelancers that are UX experts that can do this. So this is where UX comes in, and obviously from here this is where this becomes creative. So if you just wanna cluster these, you can see this is the realm of digital. Digital owns this. Obviously, we're going to creative. And so this is the realm of creative. Okay. And then right back here, this is the realm of digital again. Throughout this process, you have project management. Throughout this process, you have client service. And so let's chat timing. So in the perfect world, internal briefing, getting budget guidelines, this can take 1 week. Digital strategy should take 2 weeks. The sitemap user flow should take 1 week. Functional specs should take 2 weeks. Wireframes should take 3 weeks. The brief is a brief. It can take a week. This can take however long. This can take anything from 2 weeks to a month. So let's call it 3 weeks. The concept should take 2 weeks. The signing of one concept should take 1 week. Rolling the creative out into the rest of the build should take 2 weeks. During this time, the copy deck, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. The copy is sent to layout. Layout takes 1 week. In the ideal world, perhaps should take 4 weeks with the changes. When you come into front end and back end, if you want amazing work, you need 12 weeks. Q&A should take 2 weeks. The client playing around with it should take 1 week. We sign it off and have a week to go live, and then this is ongoing. So that's 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 11, 12, 14, 15, 19, 20, 21, 31, 33, 34. This is 35 weeks. 35 weeks divided by 4 is 8. 8.5 months. Is that right? Yeah. That's in the perfect world. What you can do is concertina this. So you can do that in a day. You can do that in 2 days. You can do that in 1 day. You can do that in 3 days. You can do that in 4 days. And you can collapse this. However, the more you collapse, remember, I'm not saying skip a step. I'm saying collapse, a concertina that you can shorten these timelines. You can do this quicker, and you've seen it in the past that you have been able to do it quicker. But ideally, this is what's going to get us to do amazing, high quality, innovative work. But that is the perfect world. From a cost internal point of view, so cost to us, just from a percentage, so percentage of build, you work on the digital strategy can be, the digital strategy and the sitemap should be like 5% of the cost. Functional specs should be 5% of the cost. Wireframe should be 10% of the cost. Creative, the whole process should be 20% of the cost. And the front and back and all this, front and back in QA, is actually 50% of the cost. That adds up to 90, and it leaves us client service and project management. It allows us to account for 10% of the cost there. So that equals 100%. So for example, if you think a job is going to cost $100,000, that's $5,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, $10,000 for project management and client service. The last thing is deliverables. So at the end of the digital strategy, you have either web strategy or a usability strategy. At the end of the sitemap, you have a sitemap. Okay. At the end of this is a document in table format that lists objectives and functions. Deliverable for this is a set of wireframes, normally in the form of it gets exported as a PDF, and we sit down and we walk client through every single wireframe. Obviously, these are printed, so these are printed layouts. The copy deck is in the form of a Word document. Layout, and that gets submitted to PAB electronically. Okay. The outcome of the front end and the back end, the deliverables for that is a functioning let's call it a functioning build. The outcome, the deliverable for QA is a sign-off that says everything has been QA'd and functioning perfectly. And the deliverable for going live is actually going live. So to recap, brief goes to internal brief, digital strategy, sitemap, user flow. We do functional specifications. We then go to wireframes. We then either do a prototype or we go straight in brief creative. They develop their copy and the concepts that get rolled out into one layout, which goes to PAB. PAB signs it off. We go into front end and back end development. Once that's finished, we QA the programming. We invite client to test, who sign it off, and we go live. So that's the digital process. Any questions, please give me a call. My email's obviously email, or my phone's always on. Yeah, thanks guys. Hope that helps.